But Joe, first I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate you taking time to speak with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I think you had a pretty successful professional baseball career before getting into acting. So what and why made you switch into acting from baseball?
Well, baseball was my passion since I was
Hmm.
a kid, and that was something that I thought about every day was going to play Major League Baseball, play for the Phillies, or um, but no, with sports, it's like as you get older, the window gets smaller and
Mm,
smaller, right?
yeah.
So I was 24 when I stopped playing. I had a few opportunities to keep playing, but Um, yeah, I made the decision where I knew I didn't want to be a lifer in baseball because at some point you spend enough time doing something, and if you wake up and you're older and that's all you've been doing your whole life, you kind of get pigeonholed into that, right? So I knew
Yeah.
I was like, hey, if I'm playing baseball, I'm playing to play at the highest level, and if I don't see that opportunity um, still being presented, I'm gonna make a switch because I knew I didn't want to coach or get into scouting.
Hmm.
Um, I enjoy playing. I like today's opening day for baseball, so I'm very excited to watch. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, if that passion is there, I think it's always going to be there, even if you are
yeah.
a spectator or if you are playing the sport. So breaking into acting, what do you think was maybe the hardest part about that?
Ooh, I would say the consistent thing is your job is finding the job,
Hmm.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like it may take multiple days of auditioning or prepping for you to maybe get a job for a day or maybe get a job for a few days or a week or like that's why when you get a show like Long Bright River was great, in six
Yeah.
episodes, over a span of a few months, like that's a nice feeling. It's nice to work on a
Yeah.
good show, but it's also nice to have things lined up, so I would say that's definitely the biggest challenge because when you play sports, you're on the team. I mean, unless you do bad and they release you, but for the most part, you're playing the whole season, and so it's a long period of time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you may bust your butt for one day or 2 days, and then it's the constant grind of finding work. Like today, I have three auditions.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
that's a that's a lot stacked back to
So
back. Um,
yeah.
so first of all, congrats on that. Like you said, it is hard to, find the consistent work. You mentioned Long Bright River. How did that project come across your table?
So I have a fantastic team. They submit me for projects, acting projects, and yeah, I try to put together the best tape possible. But I was actually in Thailand
Oh,
during this time. My brother was getting married, so I was on a trip to Thailand. I got an audition notice, um, and I actually got four the weekend of my brother's wedding.
oh man.
You know? So it's like I think the 2 weeks leading to that, it was like dead quiet. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to Thailand. A handful of my friends were going to, and then naturally, I get four that I had to do that weekend. So the morning of my brother's wedding, did the audition, sent it in, and then a couple weeks later, heard back. So
Awesome.
yeah, it was actually the scene from my first scene in episode 2 from the show, which is kind of breaking down what happened and then walking out and having a little one-on-one with Amanda's character, Mickey.
Yeah, so
And
how was it working alongside her on the show?
fantastic. She's such a lovely person. I feel like I know people probably say this often, right? But like the whole culture around our set was really good, and I think
Mm,
a lot of that it comes from the top. So if your number one
yeah.
is very personable and nice and kind, I feel like that trickles down to everybody, and also like the showrunner Nikki, the co-creator Liz, who also wrote the book. They're very
Hmm.
lovely people to be around. So I feel like that kind of sets the culture of how the set goes. You
That's
know,
awesome.
so
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear. Like you said, the thing on set culture is very important, and it starts with, the higher ups. You mentioned Liz, the author of the book. This is adapted work. Are you someone who reads the book first, or do you just want to live on what's presented to you in a script?
I absolutely read the book as soon as I got it. Yeah, I was very curious to what my role was in this because you audition for a scene, you don't get the
Hmm.
whole script at that point. At least I didn't. And then when you book it, they're pretty much sending you the episode that they're doing. So I would get episode 2, but I had no idea how it's going to develop or how my character develops. So I wanted to read the book. The book's a little different than the script because in the book, my character's name was Win. It's
Mm,
like a Vietnamese name, and he was mentioned a few times, but not as heavily involved compared to the show. So I just kind of wanted to see the direction of where it was going.
right.
Yeah, but then you read the script and you're like, oh, you get surprised too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the show did have a few twists and turns. It did leave me guessing, and I didn't know who I could trust along the way. But it does deal with some sensitive subject matter with addiction and sex workers being targeted and murdered. How do you approach a show that has such sensitive subject matter?
I know that like the drug addiction issue is a major issue, for a lot of people or families, not just the people who are addicted, but also like their families and their friends and the
Hmm.
community. So I think it was a very important or is a very important topic to touch on because I feel like it's not really touched on much. And I think they did a really good job of showing the relationships and showing how, sisters or parents or grandparents are also really heavily affected. Um, when it comes to this, I try to look at it from a standpoint of what is my character doing for the story, and a lot of it was supplying information, giving information, being assistance um, to Mickey or to Amanda's character, right?
Hmm.
So I don't really the subject matter is difficult, but I really felt like I was more focused on what my character had to deliver rather than just the subject matter overall, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does because I think your character, Detective Danjarat, he was kind of that first person to listen to Mickey and kind of support her and her theories that she had and um trying to, be a helping source, which I feel she was kind of getting a lot of pushback at her department. So I think your character really was one of the first people to kind of step
Yeah.
up and champion for her.
And
So
also she also Mickey also is very involved with this because of the personal ties, right? I feel like a detective or law enforcement, they're doing it from a distance, so they're doing, but there's no personal
hmm.
connection. And I feel like I mean, if you watch like medical shows when a patient dies, right, like the doctor, it's part of the doctor's job, so it's like
Yeah,
they don't have time to get really emotionally attached,
right.
and it'll probably affect their work in a negative way. So I was like, I did keep that in mind, where it's like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm out there to try to spit facts,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a very good point. I think you've had a lot of different, uh, I should say, I guess you worked in different mediums in television in regards to stuff that came out weekly, and then in this show, you have something that came to streaming, all episodes dumped out. I want to get your opinion on binge watching because I know a lot of people hate it. They want audience members to kind of have that week to week to digest the content. But I think it depends on what type of show is being released. So what is your thoughts about binge watching?
that's a fantastic question. I think, I mean, sometimes you watch a show, for example, like Paradise came out recently with Sterling
Hmm.
K. Brown. I loved it. I was at
Yeah.
the point where it's like, all right, what days it come out? What's the next episode? Like to me, that was an easy show to keep track of week after week. I know there's some shows that would be more difficult after two episodes. Or an episode, you just forget about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I would say this might be a tough subject matter to binge in one day,
Right.
right? I know, so that's the response that some people gave me, where they're like they had to kind of space it out a little bit because it
Hmm.
is really heavy,
Yeah.
you know. Um, yeah, that's the $1 million question. I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, like you said, I do think like certain shows, it doesn't take like that type of mindset to like really dissect it, like Severance. That's a show that I feel like it needs to breathe. Like you need to kind of
Yeah,
let that live from week to week. But then other shows, and like you said, Longboard River, if it's too uh the subject matter is too much, like yes, I need a break. But if it's like a comedy, like based on a true story, also on Peacock. Yeah, it just like knock you can knock that out in a quick binge watch. Like I think, like you said, it depends on the subject.
During COVID, it was, I mean, you talk about timing, right? The shows that just got released that week when
Hmm.
lockdown happened. I mean, what everyone was talking about Tiger King and Squid Games for,
Yes.
right? And if that was
Hmm.
week to week, I'm sure there would have been a different conversation. Like it would have
Hmm.
been maybe not as popular. Who
Right.
knows? Maybe more popular.
Yeah,
Um,
you never know.
people get paid big bucks to make those decisions.
Right, right, right. So I want to talk about your traveling, Joe, because you've traveled a lot as a child. And looking back now, do you think that all the traveling that you've done has impacted your acting style whatsoever?
That's a great question. Um, I think absolutely. I think life experiences kind of help you, you know, develop different, I don't want to say personalities, but it just allows you to grow and especially being overseas, see life in a different light. And I
Hmm.
feel like having different points of view can only be beneficial and understanding that and understanding, seeing the different walks of life. We've been fortunate. We've been in when we traveled to some cool places, Um, but my parents really made an effort to kind of immerse ourselves into the culture wherever we were living. Like we were in Thailand. My mom's Thai, but they do have like international neighborhoods
Hmm.
where everyone living in those neighborhoods are, from most from the States or Australia or just other countries, right? Uh, my parents always chose to house us wherever like the local apartment was.
Hmm.
And I feel like that definitely, yeah, I mean, looking back now, I haven't really put much thought into that in the past, but yeah, I think it definitely plays a role. I think any experience, right? Like playing baseball, I think
Yeah.
you could take the aspects of being around a team and being around, like to me, you're around a lot of guys in college and in high school, and like you gain different experiences. So I think, yeah, I think so.
Right, I love that. And you also have directed a few shorts. So I want to know, how do you think directing also impacts your acting, and how does acting, knowing it from that side, impact you as a director?
I think that's probably been the most beneficial thing for me as an actor is shooting these short films
Mm.
because especially with auditions too because you I have a creative partner, Axia. We've done almost 25 short films,
Wow.
and so from a writing standpoint, from a creative standpoint, um, I enjoy it very much. But I think watching Axia edit and going through the editing process makes you realize that you don't need to be perfect. You need moments, right? And so I would equate it to like the editor is, or the editing process is the chef in the kitchen,
Mhm.
and the actors are giving um, the editor material. So that's like your vegetables, and then the editor has to kind of just make the soup. But if
Yeah.
you're as an actor giving what you need to give, you're giving a lot of different options, so they can play and mix ingredients. So I realized that, and it's about having the waves of instead of just doing scenes and being flat. It's
Hmm.
about showing waves, showing different reactions, and giving the editor room to work with. And to me, that helps a lot because then it makes me think, how do I make a scene dynamic, or how do I try to make a scene dynamic instead of just the same throughout the whole thing?
Yeah.
I have friends who also like in the business, and a lot of them are making shorts, and I think the experiences you learn from doing that, I think, are you can't compare to anything.
I love that. I love the chef analogy.
Yeah.
So you did mention you have three auditions today. Do you have any projects that are done, completed, that you can talk about?
Chicago Fire. So I did an episode that came out a month ago.
Okay.
I have another episode coming out in April, and an episode of The Rookie. So
Okay.
yeah, it's nice to have things to look forward to. You know,
Always, always. So Joe, before I let you go, do you have anything else you want to add?
um, if you guys would like to see the short films, this is something I'm very proud of.
Hmm.
They're all on the YouTube channel Frame by Axia.
Okay.
FRAMEDBYAXIA. That's my creative partner's YouTube channel. Um, every year we try to plug out as many as we can, balling on a budget. And then also I'm on Instagram at Joe Daru, JoeDaru.
Excellent. I will definitely check out those shorts now that I have the link to the site. So Joe, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.